Okay, I made it. And we're live on YouTube for Phaladipika. We got another important 4 yogas to cover. This chapter is really nice because everybody's interested in yogas. And it just gives you a big, huge selection of yogas, actually, doesn't it? So, without further ado, or maybe with a little further ado, just to remind what we covered so far in the yogas section. If you want to know more about any of these, you just go back and look at the previous live streams. The first 4 yogas that we talked about were the first 5 yogas were the Mahapurush yogas. These are yogas where the starry planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, get into a good sign while they're in a prominent house. So if one of these planets is exalted or in its own sign, exalted or domicile in a Kendra, which is in the angular house 1, 4, 7, or 10, then it makes it very prominent, makes that planet very prominent in a positive way. And that's, you get these different, the book gives you a name for each one of those situations and expect, like examples of the effects. Then we talked about neighbors to the moon and neighbors to the sun and how important they are, whether the moon has planets on one side, the other side, or both sides, or no planets. Same thing for the sun. And a slightly same thing for the ascendant. Then we started to get into these kind of additional yogas that are talking mostly, well, we had this group of 3 yogas. No. There's a Mahabhagya yoga we talked about, which is where, like, a male-female thing. If you're a man and you have a lot of male indicators in the chart, or if you're a female and you have a lot of female indicators in the chart. So the indicators are the ascendant, rising sign, moon sign, sun sign, and the time of the day. So if a male born during the day with a male rising sign, moon sign, and sun sign gets this Mahabhagya yoga, or a female born at night with a female ascendant, moon, and sun gets this yoga. We talked about 2 yogas, which are about how the moon and Jupiter are positioned to each other. If the moon is in an angle to Jupiter, it gives a lot of courage to follow one's desires. Makes the desires big also, so it's called the lion yoga. And then if the moon is in the 6th, 8th, or 12th from Jupiter and not in an angle, then it becomes weakened. So the luck from Jupiter doesn't get absorbed as well by the moon. So the luck fluctuates a lot, and it's called the cart. When we talked about this, I had an interesting comment, and I need to recheck this. Want to do that now? About Sama. I can't, my glasses aren't on. Inferior, equal, and superior, Adama, Sama, and Nishta. If the moon is in the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd angle, Kendra, Apaklama, or Kendra, Panapara, or Apaklama, from the sun. Let's look. See if I can see. Kashta Madhyama Vara means least, middle, and best. Vaya Yoge. Oh, come on. Let me make these bigger. Increase the. I'll also increase for you guys. Kashtama Madhyavara is going from lowest to best. It makes no sense what this person said. Wait, Kashtama Madhyavara Yoge. Let's go back to this one. I'm checking to see if this comment that I got about this yoga, I should probably tell you why we're doing this. Chandra Kendra Gre got Adhama Sama. Here's his comment. So when we looked at this yoga, if you go back and look at the live streams, you'll see this. If you look at this yoga, you'll see that it doesn't actually seem to work at all. And I just years ago just said, well, this is one of those yogas that doesn't work. Because there's many yogas that don't work, probably because I don't understand exactly the way that they're working. The situation is if the moon is in a angle, the first angle to the sun. Yeah. So in other words, if the moon is square to the sun, then it's one type of situation. If it's one off a square, then it's called apaklama. Panapar. And the second angle from the sun, that's another kind of situation. And if it's apaklama, the third angle from the sun, that's the third kind of situation. And as I was reading it, it was to be Kendra to the sun is the best, to be Panapar is middle, and to be apaklama is not so great. But it's actually the opposite. Adama is for Kendra, Sama is for Panapara, and Varishta is for apaklama. The way that he has it ordered is actually counterintuitive like that. So in other words, to have the moon be in the third square from the sun. Do you understand about this first square, second square, third square? There's 12 houses, right? A square has 4 houses and 4 corners. So there's 3 of them in the 12 houses. First one starts from the first house. The second one starts from the second house. The third one starts from the third house. There's not a fourth one from the fourth house because that's part of the first. So that's what we mean by the first square, second square, third square. Relative to the ascendant, the first square is from the first house, the second square is from the second house. Relative to the moon, the first square is from the moon's house, the second square is from the next house over, and the third square is from the third house over from the moon. Get it? So it's supposed to be revised. We should revise this definition so that the third one is the best and the first one is the lowest. And then we can relook at things and see if it makes it any better. I kind of doubt that it will, because I didn't really find that it was the opposite of useful, And I just found that it was kind of ambiguous. Anyway, that's one of the other yogas we looked at. Then we had these 4, Vasumat. This was last week, right? Vasumat, wealthy. All the benefics are in an upachaya to the moon. Spotless Amala, you have benefics in a 10th from the moon or ascendant. An abundant, which is a very complicated one. Lord of the moon joins the Lord of the ascendant in a very friendly sign while a strong planet aspects the ascendant. All right, now we're ready for new stuff. You ready? Questions? Let's go. So I don't have my glasses because they're like downstairs or somewhere, and I was late. So I'm squinting a lot. I apologize. Sarve panchasu shastu saptasu Śubha-mālascha panktya. Oh, something weird just happened. All good. Yadyevam rishtad vayayadishu griheshvatra shubhakaya mrta suraksho che yadikama kandaka itao bhagyesha sukravabao Lakṣmī. What is this meter anyway? Lakṣmī tatha vidhe himakare Gaurī jivekshite. All right, 4 yogas here. They're in 2 groups. The first group is called the Strands, and the second one is the goddesses. So there's 2 goddess yogas and 2 strand yogas. The first is the Auspicious Strand, which is if you have all the benefics in houses 5, 6, and 7. The second is the Inauspicious Strand, which is if you have the benefics in 6, 8, and 12. And we'll talk about the wording a little bit in a second. Goddess of Fortune Yoga, if the 9th Lord and Venus are in their own signs, or exalted, and in a trine or angle. Goddess of Beauty is if the moon is in that situation. Okay, let's talk about these in a little let's just be a little bit more clear about the definitions. Starting with auspicious strand. Sarve. Sarve means all. Sarve panchas ashu shashtasu saptasu. So that means pancha, 5. It's a rare situation where the author is calling the houses by the literal number. Panchasu sashtu saptasu. 5, 6, and 7. All 5, 6, and 7. Śubha. Malascha. Ankestita. It's called a Śubha-māla if the Śubha planets, the benefics, are in 5, 6, and 7. But sarve, the sarve means all of them. Now, which there's 2 objects. There's the planets, benefic planets, and then there's the houses that they occupy. Which one of those does the word sarva apply to? It's the grammar on it is sarve, which means in all. So it applies to the houses. So this means that the 5th house has to have a benefic, the 6th house has to have a benefic, and the 7th house has to have a benefic. So that means you have to have Jupiter, Venus, or Mercury in the 5th, 6th, or 7th. Then you'll have something called an auspicious strand. You see, this is also why it won't happen if you have a clump. It's not an auspicious clump. It's not like, oh, all my benefics are in the 5th house. That's wonderful, but it's not an auspicious strand. A strand is when you get 1, 2, 3 in a row. Or some kind of something. It's not clumped together. So it's not like, oh, I have one. If you have all benefics in one of these houses, it's definitely nice. It's something like this yoga. It's partially forming this yoga, but not fully. All right, and then the inauspicious strand is just if those benefics are instead of being in 5, 6, and 7, if they're in 6, 8, and 12. Again, it's not just because you have Jupiter in 12 that you have an inauspicious strand. You don't. Or even if you have Jupiter and Venus and Mercury in the 12th, it's not an inauspicious strand. It's not the greatest, like, rosiest thing in the world that people line up for. But it's not an inauspicious strand. It's part of an inauspicious strand. In order to get inauspicious strand, one of the benefics has to be in 12, another one has to be in 8, another one has to be in 6. I'll tell you, this is very rare. Because the spread between Mercury and Venus is not really that much, possibly longer than the distance between 6 and 8. So it's very rare. So if you do have like 2 malefics in these houses, spread over 2 houses, or all of the malefics are in one of these 3 houses, it's a part of this yoga, but not the full thing. Then there's this thing called Goddess of Fortune. And if you're saying, well, what's the effect of the yoga? Just hang on. He gives you the definition. In case you're new to this stream, he gives you the definition of the yoga first, and then he gives you the strand. He gives you the effects. First definition, astronomical definition, and then the effects, or the interpretation. So this Goddess of Fortune thing, it says Swarksho Che. That means if it's exalted or in its own sign. Yadi, if it is. Kona Kantaka, which Kona Kantaka means in the trines or at the corners. So corners is another way of saying angles. Unless it just means trines. You can keep your eyes open for that. But typically we understand Kona Kantaka means the trine or the angle. It's probably very safe to say it's trine or angle. Why? Because what was the first yoga that he taught in this whole chapter? The first yoga that he taught was the Mahapurusha yoga, where you have one of the 5 planets be in Swarksha and in the Kendra, in their own or exaltation sign, and in a angular house. That's a template that a lot of other yogas are going to use, that little molecule, as a part of their bigger molecule. So this, for example, this yoga is using that basic molecule of the Mahapurusha yoga and saying if it happens to the ninth lord and Venus at the same time. So it's like a special version of Mahapurusha Yoga. If the Mahapurusha Yoga happens to the ninth lord and Venus, if you have one of those rising signs where Venus is your ninth lord, then that particular rising sign is a little bit easier to get, or significantly easier to get the goddess of fortune yoga. So that particular rising sign will be known as having a bit of the goddess of fortune yoga quality to it, because it has statistically higher percentage of natives who are going to have it. Make sense? People following? I don't know. Nobody's really here today and not that much action. That's cool. You guys are following along as long as I haven't been disconnected. So that makes sense, right? Goddess of fortune. Ninth lord has to be in its own sign or exalted. I should do this. Let me do this. I'll show you these examples of these. Goddess of beauty. The moon is in that situation. Okay. I forgot that I had this tool that I could show you these yogas. 1 second. Chart. Green board. Give me a sec. I'm going to open this up and then switch this over, and hopefully nothing falls apart. There it is. It worked. All right, so okay, we want to let me show you the auspicious strand. So for auspicious strand, you care about auspicious or inauspicious strand, you care about these planets: Jupiter and Venus and Mercury. Why? Because those are the benefics. The order of their beneficence is like this: Venus most, Jupiter next, Mercury that. Okay. Now, let's make this chart have a auspicious strand. Here's what you have to do. There has to be a benefic in the 5th. There has to be a benefic in the 7th. There has to be a benefic in the 6th. This is probably one of the most beautiful auspicious strand yogas you could possibly have in any rising sign. Because look at the dignity of these planets is also fantastic. 2 of them are in their own sign and 1 of them is exalted. Okay, that's an auspicious strand. This is not an auspicious strand. Nor is this an auspicious strand. Okay, it has to be each one of the houses occupied. Now, what if you have this? Do you not have an auspicious strand? So you don't have an auspicious strand, but you have 66% of an auspicious strand. So, roughly 66% of the effect is going to be potentially applicable to you. And let me tell you, that's a lot, because even if you have this, it's hard to ruin this, actually. This is so wonderful. One way you might kind of throw a wrench into this is doing this. And maybe this. I don't know, really. This would not. Yeah, maybe one way you could kind of mess up this chart. Yeah, you could even. Let's try to really mess up this yoga. Saturn would be terrible here. Okay, so we just made this. Here's an example of where this chart has just like a beautiful Śubha-māla, right? This auspicious strand. Native is going to have fantastic karma. But now the rest of the chart, we bring in the rest of the chart and we put things in their worst possible positions. Mars is debilitated, Saturn is debilitated, Moon is debilitated. You might as well debilitate the Sun and make it even worse. This might even form some other kind of yoga, but whatever. So here, since the whole rest of the chart is going against the theme of auspiciousness, The auspicious yoga, even though it's 100%, like 120 million%, it's going to not give you 100% of the effect because nothing else in the chart has the same flavor to it. So in a chart like this, you're going to get like 100, you're going to get like 50% of, or less of the auspicious strand effect. But in a chart like this, where this is actually a better chart. You don't have the auspicious strand yoga form. You have about 66% of it, and everything else in this chart is auspicious. You're going to get like 66% of the effect of the auspicious strand. It's going to be more than the chart that had the full auspicious strand, but it was toned down by everything else. Hopefully that's slightly clear. Yeah, that's true, Samurai. But I'm just trying to show you an example. All right. Then inauspicious strand, example of inauspicious strand. Clear everybody off, that's not a benefic. To have an inauspicious strand, this interesting thing is you can keep that, guys, the benefic can still be in the 6th house. But the other benefics have to be, this is not an inauspicious strand, by the way, either. This is actually quite good also. This all of a sudden makes it an inauspicious strand. Why? Because all of the benefics got into Linastana, which is the houses that hide or diminish the prominence of the planet that's in it. It doesn't matter what the order is, Kate. But that particular order was just gorgeous because every planet was in such a good dignity. Okay, so here's an example of Aśubha, inauspicious. This is not inauspicious. Is it kind of 66% of the inauspicious? Yeah, kind of. So that's that. This, what is it so special about this 5, 6, and 7? Well, I don't know, but it's interesting how the strand starts at 5 and ends at 7. Those are good to connect because it's helping you interact with the world very nicely. And the other one is obvious. It's the Linastana. All right, that is the visual explanation of what forms auspicious strand and inauspicious strand. Now, the goddess of fortune. The goddess of fortune is if we have the 9th lord and Venus in Mahapurush Yoga. In a slight, like a modified Mahapurush Yoga. So let's just play with this 9th lord. Boom, here's the 9th lord. The 9th house is Virgo, so the 9th lord is Mercury. So where can this guy go? He has to either stay here, because this is an angle, the 9th house, or I can come over here, because this is an angle. Waiting for the leg. This is the leg. Yeah, we can come over here because this is an angle. You can go to one of these pink houses because these are the trines. Me and words, it's like, this is a trine. He can stay here because this is a trine. He can stay here because this is a trine. He can stay in one of these pink houses because this is an angle. Now, however, he also has to be either in his own sign or exalted. That means he has only 2 options. He can either be in Gemini or Virgo. For a Capricorn ascendant, which is pictured on the screen, there's only one option. You can never have Lakṣmī Yoga if Mercury is not in Virgo. Because if it's anywhere else, it's not going to be in its own sign or exalted unless it's in Gemini, but then it can't be in an angle. This is why whole sign house system is so important. You're going to lose all these important details if you start doing dynamic Bhavchilic houses, Placidius and all this. So this is it. You can only have Mercury here for a Capricorn ascendant. The ninth lord has to be in exaltation or domicile and in an angle or a trine. And Venus also. So we have to put Venus somewhere on this map. We could not put her here. We could not put her here because if we do, she's debilitated. So she would match the paradigm of being in a trine, but she wouldn't match the paradigm of being domicile or exalted. It's quite the opposite. We could put her here, but it's not special. We could put her here, and it would work, but it would never happen. Except maybe in a divisional chart, it could happen. The reason is that she's too far. She never gets that far. But we could put her here. You could actually have this happen. That's the rarity of this yoga for a Capricorn ascendant. It will only happen when Venus is in Libra and Mercury is in Virgo. So if you got Venus in Libra and Mercury in Virgo, you better do stuff during Capricorn ascendant because you have this fantastic yoga. Louisa is saying, even being Lord of the 8th house, Jupiter in Sagittarius, Lord of the 12th house, Jupiter in Sagittarius was inauspicious because it deuced on it. It's not particularly inauspicious for Capricorn ascendant. For a Capricorn ascendant, all of these yogas also tell you something about the ascendant, which tells you about the flavor of the ascendant. The Capricorn yoga, the Capricorn ascendant, it's kind of hard to have a Lakṣmī yoga because the ninth lord only has two signs that it can occupy, and the 10th, the Venus cannot get far from it, so it's also very limited. It only has one sign that it can occupy, so it's much less statistical chance to have a Lakṣmī yoga if you have a Capricorn ascendant. It tells you about the Capricorn ascendant that Lakṣmī yoga is not very compatible with it. It's not very natural to it. On the other hand, you can get this gorgeous, you can get an amazing Śubha-māla yoga with a Capricorn ascendant. And you can't really get a very terrible Aśubha-māla. Or you could get protected from an Aśubha-māla because the two of the signs that are the 6th, 8th, and 12th house are good for benefics. So it will reduce the virulence of the Aśubha-māla. But I just want to show you an example. I don't know the proficiency of the people watching. And in fact, out of all the people watching this video, there's a huge spectrum of proficiency with astrology. For some people, when you say the moon is in the first, second, or third angle from the sun, that's it. That's all they need to know. They already visualized the whole thing in their head. But for other people, they're like ready to click to another video because they have no idea what that means. So just trying to show you what the things actually look like so you can start to make sense of these kind of terms like first, second, and third square, ninth lord and Venus in Mahapurush, modified Mahapurush yoga. That's enough for me. I don't have to show myself this diagram. All right. That's the Lakṣmī yoga. And then the Gaurī yoga, which is the beauty, goddess of beauty yoga. You have the moon in this situation. So most people don't think that this means that you have to have the ninth lord involved as well. Most people would say it's just a moon yoga, but the way that it's written, it's possible that it should also include the ninth. The moon just needs to be here. This is a Gaurī yoga. Gaurī yoga. Why? Because the moon is in an angle and it's in its own sign. This is also Gaurī yoga. Why? Because the moon is exalted and it's in a trine. Those are the two possibilities. Again, Capricorn has less chance of getting Gaurī yoga. No, not really. Capricorn has got a pretty decent chance of getting Gaurī yoga. Okay. So now you've seen what these things actually look like in a chart. Now let's talk about the effects. The effects. The auspicious Strand, a qualified leader admired by rulers, wealthy but generous person who helps others fulfill their duties, a good friend with excellent spouse and children, patient and wise. So this is actually very compatible with Capricorn. Anyway, it's Janadhikari. That's a very qualified leader. Shtipala Shasto, admired by rulers. So if you have an auspicious Strand, you're going to be very qualified in dealing with people. And that's why it's going from the 5th to the 7th house. You're going to be very qualified, intelligent, and affectionate in how you deal with people. A wealthy, bogey, but generous pradata person. They're not just wealthy and they're not just generous or good-hearted. They're wealthy and good-hearted. Parakarya karta. This is the kind of the most important part. Parakarya karta means they help. Their actions or their karta is parakarya, stuff that's meant for other people. They do stuff to help other people. 5th, 6th, and 7th occupied by benefics. Not a malefic in the 6th. Malefic in the 6th will not incline you to think about other people. Malefic in the 6th will incline you to take care of yourself and make sure you get what you want and need. Benefic in the 6th will make you care about what other people want. 5th, 6th, and 7th, man, really dedicate yourself to taking care of others. Bandhu Priya, people like this person. Or they themselves, it's a good friend. So it goes both ways. The people like this guy, or gal, as my grandma would say, and they like people. They're bandhus, they're relatives, they're friends. The things they're bonded to, bandhu. Is priya, is dear. That means that they're dearly bonded. They like people, and they care about their relationships. 5, 6, and 7 with auspicious, with benefic planets. Sat Sutta Darya Yuktam. They have Sat Sutta and Sat Dara. They have a good spouse and they have good kids because they care about their relationships. Dhira, patient. Sumalavaya Yoga Jata. Dhira means patient. Dhira means sober. Dhira means smart, wise, not rash. That they won't act on impulse. They'll think a lot about how their actions will have effects, and then they perform the actions. Make sense? So this is a lovely yoga. It's extremely rare yoga. But the concept behind the yoga is very interesting. The connection between the 5th and the 7th is very important. The 5th Lord, 7th Lord, exchanging, one going into the other's house. It's nice. You get parts of this stuff come out. Parts of this interpretation are involved in that. If you have nothing in the 5th, but something in the 6th and the 7th, you're getting some connection between the 5th and the 7th. If you have planets in 5, 6, and 7, but they're not all benefics, something is there. Some aspect of this is important to consider. To have it actually fully formed, you have to have a benefic. One benefic in the 5th, one benefic in the 6th, and one benefic in the 7th. So really, it's more important what it teaches us about the connection between the 5th and the 7th and the nature of the 6th house, whether benefic is there or malefic. Got it? And from here, we'll look at the opposite yoga, Kumarga Yukto Aśubha-māla kakye Duki Presham Vada Kritagna. Kritagna. That's a word in and of itself. I should look that up. Can you give me a second? I'm gonna look this up. Otherwise, it's redundant, and I was just accepting it as being redundant. I think it's a word in of itself. It's not a word in of itself. Kritagna, ungrateful. Ungrateful. Okay. Live translations. Kumarga Yukto Śubha-māla kakye Aśubha-māla kakye Duki Paresham Vada Kritagna. Just to make it clear too, let's do this and this. Syat khataro bhusura bhakti hino Lokabhishabda Kalaha Priyasyat. So the first, inauspicious strand, resorting to bad ways. Unhappy, ungrateful, and interfering with what others try to accomplish. Without appreciation for good, helpful, intelligent people, reviled by society and loving to fight. What is this? The benefics are not visible in this chart. The benefics are hidden in the 6th, 8th, and 12th houses. There are ways. It's not. There's all kinds of different ways of having benefics in the 6th, 8th, and 12th house. But believe me, you're not going to find that many charts with it anyway. So don't get too worried. There's different conditions of dignity and lordship that you will make this worse or better. But the basic concept of having the benefics not be very active. That's what the yoga is really about. The benefics are not very active. They're hidden away in these unseen areas. 12 and 8 are houses where you cannot see what's in them. And 6 is a house that's supportive of others. It's not very dominant. So if the benefics are not very dominant, then you're not going to have benefic traits. So instead you're going to have malefic traits. Malefic trait is Machiavelli. Anything that it takes to get what you want is malefic philosophy. So that's what Kumarga Yukto means. They don't think, I do want this, but it's not worth it to get it in this way. They never think that. They think I want it, and I don't, whatever I have to resort to get it. So that's Kumarga Yukto. Dukkha means unhappy. So they're not like carefree. They're not happy. They're not smiley. They're Paresham, Dukhi Paresham. Vada Krit. So the previous yoga, the Śubha-māla thing was Parakarya Karta. Their activities are for the sake of others. This opposite yoga, the inauspicious strand, it's the opposite how they act. Instead of, when benefics are prominent in the people, it indicates acting for the benefit of other people. That makes you feel carefree, actually, and relieved, and automatically fulfills your needs. When malefics are prominent or benefics are not visible in a chart, they're not dominant in a chart, then you get the opposite thing. The person doesn't have the sense that they should help other people succeed. They get the sense that they need to interfere with other people's success. A benefic person, which means, a chart where benefics are well off and influential, that person will have the feeling that I myself will prosper by helping other people prosper. A chart where the benefics are not visible but inauspicious, Malefic planets are visible. They'll have the other sense that if I don't interfere with my competitors, they'll beat me. So my best interest is to sabotage my competitors, and everybody's my competitor, let's face it. So the quality of malefic is to paresham vada krit. You try to ruin what other people are doing. So paresham vada krit and kritagna. So there's two, the word kritagna, as you saw by the fact that I just finished the translation of it 35 seconds ago, it has several ways that you could look at it. It kind of means killing things, being brutal, but it's specifically used to mean somebody who doesn't acknowledge your action. Like, it means ungrateful. If I do something and you acknowledge it, then I feel happy. If I do something and you don't acknowledge it, I feel ignored. The second thing is kritagna. One is kritagya. You're acknowledging what a person did, and the other is kritagna. You're ignoring what a person did. So why is it that they feel that they have to interfere with other people? Because they don't think other people are any good. They think everybody else is their competitor and out to get them. So they're not acknowledging any good behavior from other people. Kritagna. The reason why they're paresham vadakrit, why they want to interfere with other people's success, is because they don't think that other people are doing anything good for them. And they actually say, Bhusura Bhakti Hino. Even the Bhusura, which literally means the earth gods, even the human gods, Bhakti, devotion, a devotional attitude, a loving attitude, Hina. They don't have it. They're devoid of this. They don't have a devotional attitude towards the gods of the earth. Who are the gods of the earth? The Bhusura are Brahmanas. Brahmanas are who? What? Brahmanas are people that are philosophical, intelligent, helpful. So the nature of malefic dominance and benefic non-dominance, non-prominence, is that you won't be able to see any good in other people, and therefore you won't, even for the most good people, the bestest people, won't strike you as being particularly great. You'll think, just like you'll look at a person and you'll just think, this guy is out for money, or this guy is out for fame, or this guy wants something from me, even though the person doesn't want that from you, just wants to help you. Because of that, you try to interfere with them. Oh, put up a bunch of defamation of this person. So that's Aśubha-māla, and then this Loka Bisapta. That means people curse him. Loka, the whole world curses. Abhishapta gives a big curse. That means people don't like this person. And this person is Kalaha-priya, not Bandhu-priya. See, this is another thing that's different between the auspicious and the inauspicious yoga. The auspicious yoga is bandhu priya. Bandhu means bonding. So we translated it as they like their relatives, a good friend. But generally it means bond, favorable, loving to bond. The other one, inauspicious thing, is loving to break. Kahala priya. So benefics like to bring things together and make things meld and meet and join. Malefics like to break things apart. And the way you break things apart is by having fights and sharp things. Okay? All right. And then we need to look at the two goddess yogas now. The two goddess yogas, the first one is goddess of fortune, Lakshmi Yoga. Nityam Mangalashilya Vanitaya Krida. Sorry, hang on a second. Nityam Mangalashilya Vanitaya. This must be missing an A. Nityam Mangalashilaya Vanitaya Krida Rogi Dhani Tejasvi Svajanam Surakshati Mahalakshmi Prasadalaya Shrestandolikaya Priyati Turagastam Bhera Madhyasto Lokananda Karo Mahipati Varo Data Chalakshmi Bhava. So this goddess of fortune yoga, the basic thing of it is a recipient of the goddess of fortune's mercy. Always, and here the recipient, what happens. Always enjoying the company of a woman of auspicious character. Why is it like this? It could be spouse. You can make it as spouse, but the direct meaning of the word is woman. It's the Lakshmi yoga. What's Lakshmi? Lakshmi is Vishnu's spouse. So to have a Lakshmi blessing means to have a fantastic spouse. So nityam means always or steady. Mangala shilya, auspiciously behaved. Vanitaya basically means wife or woman. Krida, enjoying, playing. Nityam, constantly. So it's a marriage, nityam, but it's krida. It doesn't feel like a marriage. It feels like fun. Mangalaya Shila Vanitaya Krida. Okay. Tyarogi, not unhealthy, no disease. Healthy person. Dhani, wealthy. Tejasvi, powerful. Svajanam Surakshati, takes care of his dependents. Mahalakshmi Prasada Alaya, the recipient of the goddess of fortune's mercy. Shreshtan Dolikaya, they sit on a nice swing. Priyati Turaga, or they sit when they go someplace, when they're at home, they have a nice couch. When they go someplace, they have a nice car. That's basically what it means in today's world. Shreshtan Dolikaya Priyati Turaga Stambhera Madhyastito. Tito should probably be this. There's so many typographical errors in the text. Should probably be Stito, but I don't feel like messing with it now. Okay, so basically it means they have great property. Why? The goddess of fortune is also the goddess of wealth. So they're going to have comfort, abounding, and luxury. So here, literally, it means they have the best swing, and when they travel anywhere, they travel on horses or elephants. So what does it mean today? It means they have good furniture and nice cars. Lokananda Karo, they make everybody happy. Mahipati Varo, they would be Mahipati, a truly excellent master. Mahipati Varo, they're truly excellent master. Data, they're generous. That's the effect of Lakshmi Yoga. Reading Steppenwolf. So what is this Lakshmi Yoga again? It's when the ninth lord and Venus are in something close to a Mahapurusha Yoga. So this, what it tells you really, because you're not going to see this yoga pop up in 5 out of 10 charts. It's going to pop up in like 1 out of 50 charts or something. But why is it important to learn this yoga then? Because it's telling you about Venus. The yoga is telling you about Venus. The yoga is telling you about the ninth lord. And the yoga is telling you, if you want to see, if you think the ninth house is great, you better look at Venus too. Because if they're both great, that's really a bullseye. If you think Venus is great, then you should look at the ninth house too. For the same reason. So what is Venus like? Venus is like this. Venus is Lakshmi. Venus will give these results. But on her own, She won't give this to this full extent. The ninth lord can give it these results, but on its own, it doesn't give it to this full extent. But when both the ninth lord and Venus are in good circumstances and prominent places, you get this kind of result. Makes sense? These yogas are important to learn, not for the sake of you're actually going to interpret this yoga in a chart. Because actually speaking, if you do that, you're a total hack. You're no better than a computer if you do that. You just find a yoga in a chart and then you give the effect of it. Big deal. You're a total hack. Literally, artificial intelligence could be as smart as you if that's how you do your astrology. That's not the purpose of learning these yogas, just to be able to find them in a chart and then spit out the meaning. The purpose of learning the yogas is to learn that what causes this yoga and then what effect does it make. For example, with this yoga, because now we know about Venus, the nature of Venus and the nature of the ninth house and how important it is to look for confluence. What about Aśubha-māla and Śubha-māla? You're not going to see those in charts, I'm telling you. Sometimes, occasionally, you're going to see them in charts. And it would be stupid for you to then jump up and be like, wow, I found Aśubha-māla, because it's not going to act like an Aśubha-māla unless the rest of the chart is also Aśubha. It's not going to act like an inauspicious strand unless the rest of the chart is inauspicious. It's really, really hacky to try to do astrology based on just reading yogas. But one of the most important things you can ever learn are the yogas. Not because you're actually going to use them, not because they actually give accurate interpretations, but because they teach you what's going on in astrological interpretation, how to do astrological interpretation. What did we learn from Aśubha-māla and Śubha-māla? What benefics are like. How important it is to have benefics prominent, especially in places where they affect how you interact. 5 and 7 and 6. How you treat others. So the absence of dominance of benefics was really the topic that we learned in the Śubha-māla and Aśubha-māla. The nature of Venus and the ninth lord is really the topic here. Now, the final one is goddess of beauty, Gaurī. Sundaragatra Shlaghita Gotra Parthiva Mitra Sadgunaputra Pankaja Vaktra Sangstutar Jatro Rajati Gaurī Yoga Samutta. That was well written. That's a well written shloka. Sundaragatra Shlaghita Gotra Parthiva Mitra Sadgunaputra Pankaja Vaktra Sangstutar Jatro. That one's a little falls apart. Rajati Gaurī Yoga Samutta. Very good. Good work, Mantreshwar. So what does it mean? Beautiful body, excellent family, friendly with powerful people, producing excellent children, lotus-like face, celebrated and rejoiced over by the masses. This is the goddess of beauty yoga. This is formed by having the moon in Mahapurusha yoga conditions, which could also include the trines. So why is it why the moon? This tells you the moon and Venus. Now you're learning about these planets, really, by learning these yogas. Those are the female planets, the highly female planets. Moon and Venus. Highly male planets, Sun and Mars. Highly female, Moon and Venus. Moon and Venus. So the moon can give beauty. It gives beauty. It's not just Venus. The moon is beautiful. Venus is also very beautiful. It's the brightest planet. It sparkles in the sky, but it's tiny compared to the moon. The moon has spots on it, but it's beautifully white and big. So they're about equal in terms of how beautiful they are. Will you get goddess of beauty in other ways? You sure will. Because you should know about that. Because Venus, well, goddess of Lakṣmī. If you're getting Lakṣmī, you think Lakṣmī is not beautiful? She was described as Mangala Shilaya Vanita Krida Rogi Dhani Tejasvi, very fit, very able to have fun, very enjoyable, and very auspicious. So Lakṣmī Venus will give you beauty. for sure. The moon will also give you beauty if the moon is in good dignity and in a prominent place. So you get Sundara Gatra, which means a good body, good product of the family, and Shlagita Gotra, a good thing producing the body. So it's a good family too. Moon is mothery. Friendly with powerful people. The moon is still the moon. It's night time, not daytime. It's not very in your face. It's more behind the scenes. So it doesn't really have the Gaurī yoga doesn't really produce a leadership type, but you get Parthiva Mitra, person who is friendly with powerful people, friends in high places. Sadguna Putra. Sadguna Putra means they have good kids. It also means they're very creative. That's the moon. The moon is mothery, and the moon is also your ideas, your dreams, your inspirations, your muses. The muses are in the moon. Pankaja Vaktra, nice looking face. Sangstuti Jatro, people like them. Rajati, people actually rejoice also over them. Over by Samutta, everybody rejoices over this person. All right. You know what else we can do is look at a couple of charts. Let me show you how rare these are. So, you know, I have like a stock of typical celebrities. Like, they're not typical. I have a stock. My typical stock of celebrities is like Albert Einstein, Marilyn Monroe, Elizabeth Taylor. Because I just saved these charts. So in that whole group, there's zero. There's zero Aśubha-mālas. There's zero Śubha-mālas. I can show you one example of Gaurī yoga. Guess who it is? Out of all the people that I have in my chart, there's only one. Okay, out of these people, Carl Sagan, Enrico Fermi, Einstein, Marilyn Monroe, Angelina Jolie, Priyanka Chopra, Elizabeth Taylor, Salvador Dali, Jim Morrison, Bill Gates, Trump. Trump needs no first name, or Hitler. Which one of those charts has Gaurī yoga? I think you would definitely. I mean, I would think, man, I hope Elizabeth Taylor has it. Or Marilyn Monroe. But they don't. What about Priyanka Chopra? She's gorgeous. What about Angelina Jolie? But they don't. But you know who does have it? Let me show you. Let me see if anybody guessed. Ha! Thank you, Danish. You know who does have this yoga? Coming right up. Reveal. Big reveal. It didn't work. 1 second. Big reveal. Big reveal. What happened to my big reveal? Okay, here it is. My big reveal is going slow. I wanted to make it dramatic. Who has the Gaurī yoga? This guy. Jim Morrison. Can you see? It's just pretty fantastic example of a Gaurī yoga. Why would I say this is a pretty fantastic example of a Gaurī yoga? So first of all, here's the basics. The moon is exalted, and it's in a Kendra. The moon is in a Mahapurusha situation. So that's basically a Gaurī yoga. And why is it such a great Gaurī yoga? Look where Venus is. Venus is in a direct relationship with the moon, because it's almost very close to exactly opposite. So the moon, which is in Gaurī yoga, is also getting huge influence from Venus, who is Lakṣmī, who's the other source of beauty. That's the main thing. It's not. It is a Gaurī yoga, which is rare to find, and it's extremely influenced by Venus. Other things which are also significant is the first lord. For appearance, you want to think about the first lord. The first lord is not doing bad. First lord is in Gemini, which is a good-looking sign. The sun is also not doing bad. It's in the 11th house. But really the main thing is it's got a Gaurī yoga and aspected by Venus. It's important in this chart because the guy's good looking. Obviously, there's one of the most memorable male sex symbols in history. There's not that many male sex symbols. You get some like Robert Redford, James Dean. Jim Morrison is really like on that tip, on that page, like sex symbol with a heavy emphasis on the word sex. Where if it wasn't for this Gaurī yoga, where the heck else would it come from? Where would he be so good looking? This is why was his good looks very temporary? His good looks were very temporary because you also have Rahu and Ketu right on the ascendant, and not much else showing the good looks except this fantastic Gaurī yoga. So that's interesting. Very creative. Shadguna Putra. He has no children. Jim Morrison had no children. Well, actually, people tried to claim that he had children, but nobody could successfully claim that he had children. He probably didn't have any children, even though he's super sexually active. What? You're supposed to have children with your Gaurī yoga. It's also why he doesn't. He's got 2 malefics in the 5th house, and Mercury's 5th lord is in the 12th house. And he's an exchange between the 12th house and the 5th house. So, and even Jupiter's in a fire sign. So, it's not really predictable. Well, his chart's really phenomenal. He has a 7 and 11 house exchange as well. But you would not really predict children with this chart, even though it has a Gaurī yoga. So the other thing that you could predict is prolific creativity and imagination. Especially imagination when the 5th and 12th are joining. But good looking, liked by people, all that kind of stuff. Okay? Thank you, Red. Then let us just ask about these other charts. Let me show you Priyanka Chopra. He had something worth seeing. Priyanka. Let's take a look at this Kundali. Man, does she have a... This is really Priyanka Chopra? Yeah. Does she have a Gaurī yoga? No, because the moon's in Gemini. It's not in Cancer or Taurus. But Gemini is a beautiful sign. And oops, Gemini is the 1st house. And wow, oops, Venus. You see, so if you just were a hack computer dude who just learns the yogas and looks for them in charts, you'd pass right over this chart. Doesn't have a Gaurī yoga, doesn't have a Lakṣmī yoga, doesn't have an Aśubha-māla, doesn't have a Śubha-māla. Goodbye. But if you're a human being who has a human mind, who thinks about things, then you would look at this and be like, man, this doesn't have a Gaurī yoga or a Lakṣmī yoga, but it has the components of both. In fact, look at the 9th lord. 9th lord is exalted in a kona, in an angle. Sorry. These words always confuse me. The 9th lord is exalted in a trine. Triangle. That's why I can never get it angle right. And to me, a square is not very angular. These words always confuse me. The triangle sounds more angular to me. Anyway, look at that. right? So she basically has almost Lakshmi yoga, and she has fantastic partnership, marriage. And she basically has Gaurī yoga because the moon is in the first house. It's not in its own place, but it's in Gemini. In fact, it's in exchange with the ruler. So really, this chart really is going over the top with both of these. Rajadama Das. Wait. Katie, I think you were talking about Morrison with Jupiter in Kendra to the moon and Venus. Yeah, that can help also. Now Vraja says, did you at one time many years ago use sidereal for your readings and at some point change Chopra? It was 2000. It was the beginning of 2012 where I switched. So that is now 10 years ago. Okay. I also want to show you these other beautiful people. How about Elizabeth Taylor? Because that is phenomenal beauty. Does she have a Lakshmi yoga? The fifth lord, the ninth lord, the sun, it's in Pisces. It's not in its own sign. It's not an exaltation. But it is in a Kendra. Right? So it's got half of it. Venus is in Aries in a trine. So again, it has half of it. So she's got half of a Lakshmi yoga. Does she have a Gaurī yoga? No, the moon's debilitated. Nor in a sign, or, it's in the 12th house. It's in the Lina Sthana. So this is a chart with very few traces of Lakshmi or Gaurī yoga, but this woman is phenomenally beautiful. Why? The main thing with this Elizabeth Taylor's chart is a ideal case study for any Raja yogas. This chart is like the Raja yoga example chart. Fantastic for Raja yoga charts. The Raja yogas are certainly helping everything because they can involve the first lord. For example, the first lord Jupiter is in Leo, and where is the sun in Pisces? That means the first and the ninth lords are in Raja yoga. They're exchanging houses from these great houses too, from the ninth and the fourth. So this is like, I feel like a French chef. This is like a magnifique, excellent, delicioso Raja yoga for the first lord. But really, the big thing here, ascendant 13 degrees of a fire sign, Jupiter 15 degrees of a fire sign, Venus 17 degrees of a fire sign. Fire signs are trine. So there's this perfect trine between ascendant Venus and Jupiter. So the benefic effect on the ascendant is enormous. So you're getting a beautiful person without a Gaurī yoga. There's not only one way to get beauty. You find that too. People are hacks in so many ways. They just learn one way of getting beauty, Gaurī yoga, and then they don't see it in the chart, and they assume this person's not really beautiful. My eyes must be fooling me. Okay, what about Marylin? Also an interesting study. These people are also interesting. Elizabeth Taylor, they're not really stable. Priyanka Chopra is in such a different class from Marilyn Monroe. and Elizabeth Taylor. Probably this speaks to the social development of the Western world. But the older generation of female stars was so much less stable than the modern Angelina Jolie and especially Priyanka Chopra. Very well-rounded, stable person compared to these like people like Marilyn Monroe and Elizabeth Taylor who were kind of off their rockers. But I think it speaks, in a sense, sociologically, removing it from astrology. It speaks to the way the world the Western world is dealing with women. And speaking of it astrologically, when you look at Elizabeth Taylor's chart, you're kind of scared of that moon in the 12th house. In debilitation in Kamadruma yoga, it's kind of scary. There's this whole thing. These celebrities are so interesting, and I don't find it with Priyanka Chopra's chart. But like Jim Morrison, you look at that Ketu on the ascendant, and it's kind of frightening. Next to these other things that are really nice, and you look at Elizabeth Taylor with this moon in debilitation and Kamadruma yoga in the 12th house next to this fabulous chart. Or we're going to look at Marilyn Monroe and see similar, there's like really strong juxtapositions of things you do not want with things you really do want. It makes these unstable people. Steppenwolf is asking if I'd done any content of Vimshotri Dasha. Not much, but why not search Victor Vimshotri and see if anything comes up. Tadboru Yasir says Venus and Mars Nichbang Raj Yoga both in Anuradha. I'm not sure. I don't even know which chart you're talking about now. So sorry, I'll move on to Marilyn Monroe. Does she have a Lakṣmī yoga? She doesn't have a Śubha-māla yoga. She doesn't have Aśubha-māla yoga. Inauspicious Strand, Auspicious Strand, no. Right? None of these people, 0 people, out of all those famous people had either of these yogas. It is not that necessary to have the yogas. Does Marilyn have Lakṣmī yoga? Well, let's look at the 9th lord. It's in the 8th house, so no. And also, it's not in a good sign. Venus, however, is at least in the correct house. But it's in Aries, so this is telling you it's not really going to be Mangala Shilya, auspicious behavior. It's going to be hot behavior, racy behavior. Yeah, Angelina is very good. How about Gaurī yoga? Does she have Gaurī yoga? Not really, halfway. The moon is in the right house, but it's not in the right sign. And it has a nice partner. That's all, an added benefit. The moon loves to be with Jupiter. But it's not technically a Gaurī yoga. But it is quite significant because look, see, this is the thing. If you learned your yogas the right way, then you would pick this up and you would be able to read this chart and you would be able to say, this woman, I want to see a picture of this woman. You get this chart and you'll be like, I need to see a picture of this person. If you didn't learn your yogas the right way, then you'll just be like, this doesn't have it. I went through my checklist of things, it doesn't have it. If you just learn your yogas as if they're just things to learn and look for, then you're going to miss everything that you're supposed to learn from yogas, which is how to do astrology, how to make interpretations. So if you don't notice, like this ascendant is 13 degrees Leo, and this moon is 19 degrees Aquarius. Aquarius is 180 degrees away from Leo. This moon is looking at the ascendant dead on. It is aspecting the ascendant. It's perfectly, all the moonlight shining on the ascendant. If you don't think that makes a Gaurī yoga effect, then your brain's got a leak. The thermos of your brain has a leak. You didn't pick up the knowledge. That's the point of the Gaurī yoga, is the moon is doing good and is influential. The specifics of how it suggests the moon is doing good is influential, as it's in a great sign and it's in a prominent house. Here, you have the moon in a prominent house because it's, and really prominent, truly prominent. It is looking right at the ascendant. Extremely prominent moon. And it's not in the best sign for it, but it's what's making up for that is its proximity with Jupiter. And again, it's going to be a little different than the flavor of those yogas because Jupiter's the 8th lord, Venus is in Aries. It's going to come more sexual than instead of being more like virtuous, it's going to be more sexy. And she's also fabulous with the first lord, which Morrison, we talked about these aspects a bit with Morrison as well. First lord in the 11th house. Morrison, no. First lord in the 5th. Both of these guys have first lord in Gemini. Gemini is the most underrated sign for beauty. It's ridiculous. And Mercury is the most underrated planet for beauty. Gemini is really an important sign for beauty. And Mercury is an important planet. And look, Marilyn Monroe's first lord in Gemini, and the 11th house is underrated for beauty. Her first lord in the 11th house in Gemini with Mercury, with 3 degrees apart. So this chart's fantástico. Just muy bueno. Excelente. Since I'm on a roll, and since... Who said that? Since Ali Angel said Angelina is kind of a favorite, why don't we look at Angelina before signing off? 9th lord is in an angle. 9th lord is Jupiter in an angle. But it's not in the special sign. But guess what? It's in 1,000,000,001 Raja Yogas. So you might as well you should interpret this as being a Lakṣmī yoga. Venus is in an angle. It's not in the particular sign that you really want it to be in, but it's in a Raja Yoga. The chapter will come up to discuss Raja Yogas at a certain point. Personally, I would put Raja Yogas more towards the beginning of a chapter if it was my book. I definitely would start the way he started with the Mahapurusha yogas and then the sun neighbor yogas and etc. But then after that, I would probably have gone with Raja yogas in terms of how they're fundamental and very, very important. But anyway, he saves them. After going through miscellaneous yogas, he pops down to Raja yogas. You'll see. So if you're like, what is Vic saying? Raja yoga, I don't know what that means. Just, I guess probably 3 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, you'll be learning what those are. And those are extremely important. So yeah, there's Angelina Jolie. Well, look at this. I mean, really, if you're not crazy, you will see this. Ascendant 29 degrees, Venus 28 degrees. And then you'll just close the chart and say, person is beautiful. You don't even need to look at anything else in the chart because there's nothing that could override that much Venus effect on the ascendant. Same thing with Marilyn Monroe. A little less with Marilyn Monroe because it's 3 degrees away and it's not conjoining, it's aspecting. It's slightly less strong. First Lord is in Raja Yoga. It's with Jupiter. It's fantastic. These charts are fantastic. The Saturn ruined Venus a bit. No, it doesn't. But it's going to... Angelina is not Elizabeth Taylor. Nor is she Priyanka Chopra. Nor is she Elizabeth Taylor. Angelina Jolie is like Laura Croft, right? Angelina Jolie is masculine, tough, sexy, independent, indomitable. Like there was one movie where she played somebody soft, and it was like, wow, she's really a good actress. Because it's not her nature. Her nature is like, she is not a wimp. And thinness and stuff like that. She's got this contrast between plumpness and thinness, which works really well. So the Saturn in this mix It's going to give some anguish to our heart, for sure. It's going to give some depression and self-depression. Because to have Saturn in Cancer in the first house, it's very difficult to like yourself. You'll be very critical to yourself, etc. It's going to give some depression, sadness, etc. But physically, what it does with Jupiter there dominating the ascendant, it's going to Saturn is there for the adjunct to the condition, not the primary condition. If you removed Venus from this picture, then Saturn would be the primary condition. The person would have physical problems, health problems. If other things are good in the chart, then they can simply be lean and thin and kind of tall. But with Venus in this picture here, the way that Venus is in this picture, stronger than Saturn on the effect of the ascendant. Saturn is the adjunct to it. So Saturn will modify the Venus effect, not vice versa, or not change. Modify is different than change. Contradict, no. But that's why if you look carefully at her, she's got big bones. Like, she's got some serious cheeks. It's not a typical feminine structure. And that woman is brave. And kind of like ferocious. Yeah, but that's Angelina. Moon in Aries with Mars. So no, I would not say Saturn ruins the beauty. The thing is, why is it that she was depressive, right? She was very depressive in a young age, and probably that continues to haunt you. Why is it really? It's just there's a lot going on in the 12th house with the sun is in the 12th house, but this is the effect of Saturn in Cancer in the first house. Saturn is the 8th lord. All right. So that's the day. Now look, we have 40 people now. But all the good content. All you guys missed all the stuff at the beginning. So like 30 of you have missed all the stuff at the beginning. So please, it's important to see what the definitions of the yogas are and what the book says about the yogas. So when this live stream stops, it's going to become available on my channel page as a recorded video. So go back and watch it from the beginning. Thank you, everybody.